Hello, Dirt Trackers, and welcome to another episode of the Rugby Bits podcast brought to you by bet.co.za. Thank you for listening wherever you get your podcasts. Please subscribe and drop a 5-star rating to share this podcast with the rugby world. Please also visit bet.co.za and make an account with them and see what markets that they have for all the rugby tournaments happening right now. And please tell them that we sent you to. My name is Thala, and today I'm joined by Jared for an episode where we're going to look back at the URC week 5 in May, and then later in the week we'll have another episode where we'll go through some of the action from the Women's Rugby World Cup this past weekend. But as we always do, we start with our first phase, and we have an exciting announcement for our first phases. From now, we're combining with bet.co.za for a competition for our first phases, and if we choose some submissions that are given to us by our loyal dirt trackers, our followers of the show on Twitter, and as they answer the first phase question, and the best submissions will get a free R100 betting voucher from bet.co.za so that they can use that and bet on anything. And maybe they can use some of the good or bad advice that we give on the show. So please, if you want to get some free money to bet on the weekend's rugby, participate in the first phase questions every week, and you'll be handsomely rewarded in this case as well. So there's a few of you that have already been contacted. You can go look at your DMs, and we will contact you as to the free betting voucher that you've received. So we will be doing that from now on with our first phase. And then this week's first phase was quite a simple one, which is the one player, past or present, that you'd like to have a beer with. And there were some amazing submissions. But Jared, let me start with you. Who's the one player you want to have a beer with?
Yeah, so when I threw out this one, I must say, how's it, Thala? How you doing, man? How's it to the dirt trackers as well?
It's been a while, actually. I think that we've been together on a pod. Yeah, we've just load shedding and timings and all that sort of stuff. We've kind of, this combination has missed each other.
No, we have, man, and I think it's quite nice that the two of us just get to go a bit mad on this one. So yeah, I think
with the Alton Yankees and Andre Pollard 10-12 combo that we were talking about in the late 2010s that we all wanted.
Exactly, and eventually we do get to shine a bit. It's it feels like George Ford, Owen Farrell getting back together.
Yes. I'll be Farrell.
I want to be Ford, but so you can take Faz.
Yes, perfect. Okay, so who's your player you want to share a beer with?
So this was a tricky one, and I threw it out there, and I made sure I put one in so that people didn't cop out like I was going to myself, because my all-time two favorite players are probably Butch James and Bakkies Botha, with Marcel Coetzee quickly coming up the ranks. But so yeah, I've sort of decided that I would go with Butch James, ex Sharks fly half. He hits like a back rower, and from all accounts, he is amazing on the drink. So he's got party tricks, he's got stories. He's a 2007 World Cup winner. To me, that sounds great. It says a beer in the question, but I can guarantee you it's not going to be a beer with Butch James. It's going to be at least a 6-pack.
No, I think with Butch, I mean, he's I think part of that little friend group with Jean de Villiers and Schalk Burger as well. And from what I've seen and heard from their stories, they seem to get to a lot of mischief, three of them.
Exactly. And tell us, let's get yours out the way before we dive into the viewers. What's yours?
Yeah, I think I'm within that group, and which is Schalk Burger. I think he's I think with Schalk, number one, kind of like you said, I think is someone that obviously can hold his drink. Number two, great storyteller. I think if you've had a chance to listen to Schalk on a podcast or every second weekend or so on Supersport, like he's a great rugby analyst, and like he has also a lot of stories and experience. And I from what I've heard about Schalk, he can also, as the night goes on, you're going into your the fourth or fifth glass of wine, he does get a bit, deep and philosophical as well, from what I've heard. So I do like that sort of vibe. So a bit of rugby at the start, but then talking about life's like deep questions as well. I think that would be a lot of fun. But if you want him to turn up and to get fun as well, he's also able to do that. So I think he's versatile enough, like he was for the Springboks for many years, that he can play a few
Yeah.
positions for a night out. So I think he's a good choice. I didn't say this, but I think another one is George Gregan, because I've heard a lot of
Mm.
stories about how crazy he gets on a night out, and he seems to be someone that can socialize with not only Australians but South Africans and English people and Japanese people and just people from all over the world. So he's definitely a good story, a person with a good story too.
Yeah, I didn't even think about another international, like somebody not from South Africa that I'd want to grab a beer with. But I'll cheat a little bit and I'd say probably someone like Brad Barrett. Some of the stories he has from the Sharks with Saracens, I think that would be a pretty decent one as well, if we look abroad.
Yeah, it does sound like it. But if you want to change up the drink, you can also get some coffee from him as well, from his Tiki Tonga coffee shop as well. So
Yes, you and Sean
definitely
are
natural
really pushing
versatility.
for a sponsorship from them as well. Hey,
Look, shout out to Brad Barrett. If he's listening to the podcast by any chance, you have your the first place you want to have a sponsorship is right here. We will
yeah,
definitely be the biggest fans of the Tiki Tonga business over here.
I think you and Sean would just want a product. You won't even want any cash for it.
There's probably more than fine. Yeah, I feel bummed that I didn't actually go and buy some coffee when I was at the
At the stadium.
Phoenix Stadium at Saracens, because could have actually supported it from there. But yeah, Sean and I think when we meet up in a week or so, we're gonna definitely do it at Tiki Tonga. So that'll be our meeting place. Um, some submissions from our dirt trackers. We have Martin Prinsloo, who was a loyal dirt tracker of ours. He was talking about having a braai with Brian Mujati, and I think he also goes into that angle of people that you can talk about rugby and just things like general life stuff as well. And yeah, I think a lot of us were aware of like the YouTube channel that Brian Mujati had, where he was talking about like his life experiences as well, and like obviously some deep stuff and some like crazy stuff that happened in his life, but also just a very honest guy. So you'll definitely hear what he's thinking about at any time.
Yeah, I'm bummed Sean isn't on this one because he would be right on the Brian Majority chat. So yeah, I think that's a great call as well. And Thala, I don't know, do you have the tweet open on your phone or anything right now? Because
Yeah.
I did hide a little message in the actual tweet, and I wondered if you picked it up because nobody else seemed to pick it up on Twitter.
No, tell us about it.
Okay, so there's that little alt text thing in the left hand corner. If you want to click on that and read it out for us.
So it's an image. So to describe the image, it's the famous image of Stuart Hogg and Finn Russell sharing a beer after the Heineken Champions Cup. I think it was 2 years ago. The two teams faced each other, Racing and Exeter. And the image description says Stuart Hogg has a beer with a fan. And yeah, Jared has. I think he sees this is his resignation letter from the podcast at this stage. But I'm sure Cooks will have something to say about that later this week.
Yeah, you see, it was a little shot at Cooks, and the disappointing thing is that he didn't pick up on it, or he's not out here to rave about it.
No, I think I'll definitely let him know on the WhatsApp group as soon as possible. But yeah, Jared, you need to watch. You need to watch yourself here. I think there's a disciplinary committee for things like this.
No, come on. Finn Russell is always fair game. We know this, especially when Cooks is not on the podcast.
That is also fair. Yeah, I think just to go through some of the other submissions, we have Atikaka, who is talking about having a beer with John Smith. I mean, Barney is also someone that's quite popular with fans, and he seems to also just have a good reputation from people about their interactions with them. Francois Steyn, Harley Worthy from Wales, says he wants to have a beer with Francois Steyn that he can also finish off what I can't handle. I also actually, quick anecdote. When I was still studying in Stellenbosch, I saw Francis in one of the night clubs there or bars there, and yeah, I mean, I think it was in between his just before he left for France, and I think he was injured or he was not playing at the time, so he was definitely sort of getting into the beers. And yeah, like I was chugging throughout the night, so I can definitely confirm, at least from my eyewitness account, that Francis can handle his drink. His drink.
I heard that he pretty much drinks a beer, like a pint of beer in 2 sips, and that's
Yeah.
genuinely how he drinks it. It's not him like going full out. That's how he does it. It's just mad.
So that is, yeah, I think if you want to keep up with someone like that, that is always a scary thing. And then there's Carl Levin, who talked about having a beer with James Small, obviously quite famous for his exploits out at night. Um, Someone like Masengi Nelson talked about having a beer with Sia Kolisi and Eben Etzebeth. Obviously, there's quite a few fans for Sia, including Shan Mo as well. Hugo Liebenberg talked about Johnny Wilkinson. Actually, I've never heard any stories about Johnny Wilkinson on a night out, so that might be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jared, I was just about to ask you, like, I don't think Johnny's been someone that's been known as social.
No, not at all. And I think that could be an interesting thing if you could get a few beers into him and get some of those stories out of him. Because I don't think he's shared too many of them. Might be quite a boring drinking session if he's not into it.
Yeah, that's very much high risk, high reward. I think Rian Lowe's answer is probably one of the best. Gabos van der Westhuizen was one of the Springbok rugby players from, I think, the late 70s, early 80s, known for his long blonde hair and the Leon Schuster song. And he has a little beach bar in Mauritius, if I understand correctly. So, yeah, I think there'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, another interesting one that I saw was Joe van Niekerk, a bit of a left field one, which is also an interesting answer. For those unaware, he's in Costa Rica, I think it is now, where he lives like on a farm, and him and his wife do like an alternative lifestyle and live off of the land and do yoga sessions and all crazy things like that.
Yeah, Big Joe is definitely not the Springbok eighth man that you maybe left in the late 2000s. And yeah, he's got like this like long hair, scraggly beard. Like he's really gone very much into that alternate lifestyle now.
Yeah. And another left field one is that Kevin put out Brock Harris and WP Now. I'm saying it like the Scots, Pierre now. I don't know if you saw this week as well. Pierre now joined Edinburgh's top 10 try scorers of all time, which is mad or prop.
I'm not sure how. Maybe it's still some of his cheaters roots, but I think he's just someone that managed to be at the right place at the right time. I mean, he did get some of his rugby like schooling from Ollie Leroux, and he was always someone that could get a try.
Yeah. There's a brilliant try that he scored in his early days with them where he runs from like 40 meters out and dives under the post. It's brilliant. If I'm sure Andrew Ford has put it in one of his YouTube videos somewhere.
Yeah, those best prop tries.
Exactly.
I think the last one, the last then submission is from the Spring in Box account, and he shares a gif of the director of rugby for South Africa, Rassie Erasmus, and he's chomping a pizza there in the Rugby World Cup. Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for stories and candidness and like funny times, I think that'll definitely be Rassie Erasmus and dance moves. So you can also go the night on a town with him.
Yeah, I think he's got quite a decent playlist. It will surprise you. And I'm actually quite surprised at how little Rassie was mentioned. He's very popular in South Africa and obviously not that popular outside of that. But I think that a lot of people would want to hear what he want to say. And I don't know, maybe I I'm not giving our dirt trackers enough credit. Maybe they want a bit more. They didn't want to go with a popular opinion.
Yeah, maybe, or they missed the past or present thing. But yeah, I mean, I think if you could get like an audience with Rassie Erasmus for the night, I think you'll learn a lot about rugby and life and maybe some of the espionage secrets that are behind the Springboks at the moment.
Yeah, I think he'll try to hold a lot to his chest, but as you can see, he's quite big on his Brunnervein and beer, so I think he'll get him to loosen up.
Jeez, I just can't imagine the dance moves that you'll be seeing from Rassie as well. I mean,
Yeah,
if he does that in front of camera,
yeah, I can imagine the hangover though after with him.
no, it'll be very dangerous. Yeah, I think we can move on now from our first phase. And as we said, watch out for our first phase. It comes out at the latest on a Sunday or Monday morning. We'll promote it again. And yeah, the best responses will receive a free R100 voucher from bet.co.za. They are wonderful sponsors, and you can get on and start betting on some of the rugby that's happening, including the United Rugby Championship. So we've had now week 5 of the URC, and actually this is probably the worst week if you're talking about it from a South African perspective, with only one win this weekend. But yeah, good in terms of just there was a lot of great matches and a lot of surprises in store. Just to run through the results quickly, Leinster won away at Connacht, 10 points to nil in the rain. Ospreys and Stormers drew 16 all in Wales. Then on the Saturday, a big contrast to the conditions in Wales was the baking heat in the afternoon in the Highveld, where the Lions and Ulster played, and Ulster managed to hold on 39 points to 37. The Sharks were able to run away from Glasgow 40 points to 12. Dragons lost to Cardiff, Cardiff winning at home 31 points to 14. Edinburgh put up 53 points to 8 against Benetton. Scarlets won 36 points to 12 against Zebre. And then the last match of the weekend was Munster beating the Bulls 31 points to 17. So I think let's start with the first match from a South African perspective, which was the Stormers Ospreys match, where we drew 16 points to 16. And Jared, I think the first thing to maybe discuss before we go into how the game ended and maybe more detail about Manie Libbok is just how do you think the Stormers played in the rain? Because obviously now we're in a European competition. This will be something that we'll counter now for the next few months.
Yeah, I think the Stormers did relatively well. I think their starting front row struggled somewhat. And yeah, they were facing a full Welsh front row. So I think that's where they sort of struggled. I thought Marvin Ori and Salman Murat had really, really great games. And yeah, they were also going up against Adam Beard and Alun Jones, British and Irish Lions. So I think there was a lot of positives that can come from the Stormers. They did make a few changes. But I think they would want to improve on that scrummaging performance from their pack and their line-out struggles, obviously.
Do you think it's more just because they're playing for Mark Fenton for Sheer? That's obviously not their first choice front row.
I think that does play into it. It did improve when you throw Stephen Kitchoff and Brock Harris on, but Kitchoff will always make a big difference. I think Dweber really needs to work on his line-out throwing. It's becoming a bit of an issue in his game, and it's something as a hooker you want to sort out as soon as possible. But saying that, Ospreys had the same problem with Dowie Lake at hooker, and they found a way around it and were able to manufacture some success from there. So there is a way around it. I think the Stormers just need work through it and sort it out. But yeah, like I say, it's difficult to come up against Adam Beard and Alun Jones, and they really put the Stormers more under pressure. And I think it was a really great performance from Manie Libbok, because it's difficult as a fly half to play when you're not on the front foot, and then throwing in those conditions which were horrendous, and still being able to actually have a positive impact on the game is a hell of a thing.
Yeah, I think let's start with his 50-meter, or probably 56-meter penalty kick that he slotted. When I was
Yeah.
watching the highlights of this game, you just I didn't know that Libbok, had that much range in him. I thought, we could maybe get 50 at the Highveld, but not, in the driving rain at Ospreys. And yeah, he slotted that, and he had 1 or 2 meters on it as well. So that was a brilliant kick from him.
And the Premier Sports commentators were just as stunned as I was watching it. And I'm in the same boat as you. I didn't know he had that much distance in him, especially in I keep coming back to the conditions, but they were that bad. Like,
Mhm.
it's the kind
Yeah.
of conditions that, like, if you needed to go to the shop or something like that, even if it was for saying desperate, you would say, "Do I really have to?" Like, "Oh, I can live without whatever I need." If you needed milk, I'm sure I can live without milk. And yeah, he slotted that quite comfortably. Like, he hit it, turned around, and he was pretty confident that he had got it. Which, yeah, I think he really put it was another statement performance from him, and it was his
Mhm.
kicking out of hand. He had a really nice 50-22 as well. So I think week on week he's looking stronger and stronger and starting to look more like a international fly half. And I think it's just got a perfect timing if he carries on like the way he's going.
Yeah, I think that's probably the next part of the conversation to have there is, this is the sort of match that you want to stand up in. And I mean, not to draw too many parallels, but I mean, remember the match that Francois Steyn had in 2006 in the rain for the Sharks in the Currie Cup. And just his ability to control the game with his boot and, his running and his decision making. I think that's when a lot of people saw that, okay, we have someone of quality here. And Libbok being able to do that, his forwards aren't necessarily giving him front foot ball. It's not like he had, a red
Mm.
carpet to the ball all the time. Like that shows a lot of like temperament and the sort of temperament that you need in test matches. And if his kicking game is going well, and we know how good he is with ball in hand and creating for players around him, if all of those things are coming together, I mean, those calls, from certain from certain fans about Manie Libbok being the Springbok squad. I mean, Jan, I think they're becoming very hard to ignore now.
They are, and I've been one of the people that's been very apprehensive about speaking about Libbok in the Springbok setup because
Yeah.
I still have that Libbok of the Bulls and Sharks in my mind where he's shrunk in games where he really shouldn't have and doesn't take control of the game. And it was a different story for me against the Ospreys because he took the game by its throat and he tried to win it for his side. And going for a drop goal, he missed it in the end, but the balls to take that option and take that snap judgment to try and win the game for his side. It, it's something that you want to see in your fluff. You want to see him try and win it and take it on his shoulders when he feels like he's got the ability to do it. And his entire game to that point was so good that that one error, it's the thing that everyone's focusing on. But if he had nailed that, it would be a completely different story this week. He would be spoken about in a completely different light, which is fair enough. And that's how professionals are. You live and die by your successes and failures. But I think it was a more successful game for Libbok than it was a failure game. Um, the one try that the Stormers did score was from him doing an old school scissors with
Mm.
Leon Zas and sending Portevet through. I mean, it's horrid conditions. Sometimes that old school stuff just works. Like, when last did you see a scissors actually lead to a line break in a professional rugby game? And just to throw it out there and have it work is, yeah, what mixing it up and throwing something completely surprising to the opposition.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I was about to say that the only other team, and we're going to talk about this more later this week with the Women's Rugby World Cup. An team that sees more committed to the scissors is England's the England women's backline, because between their 10 and Emily Scarrett, their number 13, they always run the scissors line, or like in most of their phases, and works pretty well if you have like one of the best outside centers in the world, of course. But yeah,
Yeah,
I saw that and I was like, this is such a good sort of throwback. But then with Libbok's try, like you said, there's he went back to that and was able to create space for us, and then we went through and then obviously got it to pull the bet. So it was just his ability to do that. We know how good he is with his attack, and I've also been someone that's been a bit of a doubt about Libbok stepping into the international standard, but a performance like this and his decision making and his ability with kicking the ball, and all the questions that we've had before, which is usually his kicking, his consistency with place kicking, and his decision making. He answered 99.9% of those questions. And even with
exactly.
the Jared, with the drop goal attempt, I know there's been a bit of debate about that, but I think this kind of the scene a little bit. So it wasn't from the post, which you maybe would want him to slot, but as we've discussed, the conditions were terrible. But the other thing to note, and I think Sean made mention of it on Twitter, was it was also the timing of it was good because he did it with a few seconds left, so that if there was a miss, there was an opportunity to go on for the Stormers again to try and win the game. So I think in terms of match situation and getting the position, I think he executed those things right. It was just he was probably a few meters off actually hitting the
Mm.
mark. And, obviously, you have to penalize that, but I think the intentions were right and was the right decision to make. What do you think?
I agree with that, and I think Sean's spot on. Yeah, he did take it with the option of, well, with the knowledge of knowing that they would get the ball back and they could manufacture another opportunity, and that's game management 101, and it was
Mm.
brilliant from the book. I do think we being a bit unfair to the Ospreys. I think they had a
Mm.
very good game. I think I mentioned earlier their tight five were fantastic. They really put the Stormers under pressure there. But so was Reece Webb. And Reece Webb and Stephen Marler really kicked well the entire game. And it was a great battle to watch Manie Libbok take on those two with the kicking battle and fighting for that territory and possession. I was also quite impressed by Max. I think it's Nagy or Nagy. I'm not too sure
Mm.
how to
Yeah,
say
the
it, but
fullback.
yeah, a little bit of like a Welsh Freddie Stewart there. He was excellent on the high ball, a big
Mm.
lanky fullback. I think he's one to watch out for.
Yeah, I was about to say we'll probably get arrested by Squid Rugby if we don't mention Stephen Myler and how good he was on Friday.
No,
He
he
was
was excellent.
he's a man of the match of the game, and you can just see all the experience and his ability coming out there in that game. If I'm not mistaken, he was helping out the Welsh women's team with their kicking before the World Cup. So I'm not sure how
Was
he
that
was able
not
to do that.
was that not was that not Lee Halfpenny?
Is it Lee
Uh,
Halfpenny that was doing that?
yeah, I think it was
I
Lee
might be
Halfpenny.
mistaken. Okay, that makes a ton more sense.
Yeah, because Halfpenny was injured, but it could well have been Marler.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, you can see that. I mean, that's a good standard for Libbok to measure himself against. That he was able to go pound for pound with, you know, a really experienced and really classy fly
Mm,
half at this level. And he had the platform from his forwards mostly, and he had an experienced pack in front of him, and he obviously knows the conditions. And for Libbok to match up against Milo, that's a good that's credit to him. And yeah, I think Ospreys, hopefully this will, and I think the South Africans have been quite generous this weekend in giving some teams some confidence. But I think Ospreys, you look at their record there, in the bottom half of the table, and they're, I think, the second placed Welsh team at the moment with only 11
mm.
points and only a win and two draws, funny enough, in their first 5 games. But yeah, there's no reason why they can't kick on from this. Like you talked about earlier, they have Welsh internationals all over their team, especially in their tight five. They've got a very strong tight five, and they've got Jack Morgan, who's just an absolute insane player their loose trio. Their backline has a lot of dangerous players in it as well. So
Mm.
yeah, if they should be able to take some confidence with being the first team to take points off the reigning URC champions and go on from
No, exactly. And
there. Okay.
Thala, I don't think we need to touch too much on the Leinster game with Connacht just based on the
Mm.
scoreline and the weather there. But I do want to
Mm.
shout out Josh van der Fleer. Had an amazing carry and offload for one of for Leinster's try. And somebody on Twitter went, I'm going to, he said, lekker Josh, wees daai manne hoe om te speel trots op jou. And somebody
I
replied,
saw that.
on, it was on the URC official account. Like, I'm loving that. Joburg's finest, really making waves there.
Yeah, I think Josh is really just showing off like the talent and the depth of talent that we have in South Africa. And I was going to mention it later, but also Jared, I don't know how well you're if you're aware, like England just also picked a South African in their squad, Jack van Poortvliet, and
Oh,
they
100%.
Van Poortvliets and the Van der Fleers, they I think they have adjoining like farms up north in Gauteng. So I think it's quite great that we can just claim to have it's not even a claim now. We have the most talent and we're exporting the most talent in the world rugby at the moment.
No, exactly that. Ala. It's one of South Africa's best imports is rugby players. Exports, exports.
Yeah, and Josh able to carry that flag for us. But yeah, great game. Just looking at his numbers, like made the second most tackles, made the second most meters, and he's definitely facing the mana overseas for Leinster there.
Yeah, his carrying has really improved over the last while there.
I was wanting us to not say that. I was thinking we wouldn't fall into that trap, but we're contractually obliged to mention that Josh van der Fleer has been working on his carrying for the last few years.
Exactly that.
I think let's turn to more sunnier conditions. Yeah, you can see the contrast in the URC that you can play in like driving rain or you can play in the heat at 1 o'clock in Joburg. So the Lions and Ulster had an absolutely entertaining match between each other with 10 tries scored between them. And just meters upon meters being run by both sides. And this match was quite a seesaw battle between the Lions and Ulster. There was a point where Lions were leading by 8 points, and then Ulster had an 18-point lead, and the Lions came back if that game went another 5 minutes, Jared, I think the Lions would probably have stolen it. But I think just to start with the positives for the Lions, this was actually my first time I could actually watch them in detail and be able to watch a whole game from them. And I think the thing that impresses me the most about the Lions at the moment is just they know their structures, both in attack and in defense, and they're quite a well disciplined team. It's not just a team of like what it seemed like last year, maybe at the start of last season was. We throw the ball to like our talented players like Simelane or Van der Merwe and just hope for magic. Now it's more about the team breaking down the opposition in attack or trusting their structures in defense and being able to shut things down. So they are looking like a really good team at the moment.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that. And you can see it with the players as well, is that they're playing with a lot more, I don't want to say freedom because it's too much of a cliche, but they're playing like with so much joy. They're playing as a team, but also they've sort of like grown as individuals and like they've been allowed to express themselves. Like Nahamba, every time there's a penalty that he's won or something silly that the opposition does, he's screaming in their ears, he's getting in their faces. Tashuka is also he's pumped up with everything. So I think that's really good to see with the Lions. Besides the good results, is the way they enjoy in their matches, and I do feel sorry for them because I think there was a water break about 10 minutes before the game was ending. And it's the match was sort of swinging in there. The momentum of the match was well with them. And that's sort of where Ulster took the game away from them. And I do feel sorry for them about that. I think it was quite a big deciding factor in that match.
Yeah, actually, and I think also another deciding point was the Lions when they scored. I think when they made the game 18-10, like 30th minute, they were putting the Ulster team under pressure. The rolling balls, and like I think it was one of those that if the Lions didn't score from that ensuing wall, that there'd probably be a yellow card show. And then a few minutes later, Ulster's putting the Lions under pressure. Then Henke van Beek catches the yellow card, and that's when Ulster was able to score the majority of the points that they scored early in the second half. And yeah, I think it's just one of those where not necessarily like at the fault of the referee. It's just one of those where the warning just came at the right time for Ulster and the wrong time for the Lions. And Ulster was able, being the great experienced side that they are, they took full advantage of the playing against 14 men, and they were able to build up that lead. And yeah, just and I think they realized that they needed every single point of that lead in order to stretch things out. But yeah, I think the other turning point about the water breaks is also true because I think they're trying now to do the water breaks in like when there's injuries on the field or after a try, so it's a bit more natural. But yeah, because it's under the ref's discretion, it can fall at a place where a team has a bit of momentum. So yeah, I'm not sure how they work. I mean, this is probably a stupid rule in the first place, but yeah, I don't know how they work it so that a team isn't disadvantaged by an opportune break happening at the wrong time.
Yeah, well, you do also have to question whether you need a water break when there's 10 tries scored. Every time a try scored, you're able to get water. So I don't know if you really need the set water breaks if you got 10 tries. But yeah, I think you called Ulster winning the URC early on. For a championship side, you win these close games. So I think that's sort of buffering up your claim over there. So I was also very impressed with Duane Vermeulen. Man, that guy had a good game. And it's good to see him playing like that.
I wanted to say that I think the 4 or 5 South African loose forwards that we saw, including the 4 from the Lions, like they could all hold their heads high. They played really amazing. Starting with Duane, that first 20 minutes, I don't know what got into Duane, or if it was just something that the Ulster coaches identified as maybe the Lions aren't too quick at clearing out, but they targeted those rucks and they were able to get, he was able to get the turnovers there. So he got 3 of those. And then it was quite good to see in the second half when they were holding on to the lead. I think also just to conserve their energy, they started spreading out in defense more and trying to cover the field. And they were a bit more judicious with that. And Duane was just, playing like, the Duane Vermeulen that we all know and love. Like, he was able to make the big turnovers. He made some made a few big carries there. Yeah, I could see there some points.
And he assisted a try.
Yes, and he assisted a try there as well. But the one point that was really hilarious was when I think there was a turnover from the Lions in the 22, and then the ball got out wide to Van der Merwe, and he was the last defender on that side. And Duane, you can just see the panic in his face, just being like, "This is literally the last position I want to be in at this moment." So he's already pointing to, I think, Michael Lowry at the back, just being like, "Look, please cover for me because I'm not going to be able to chase down." And he did pretty well to keep up with Edward van der Merwe just to make sure that he doesn't break away. But yeah, I think Duane is going to try not to be in those sorts of situations anymore. So luckily, he doesn't have to play in the high felt too many times in the next few months.
The one thing I will say about Duane is that he's doing a lot of walking on the pitch, which I don't think you need to understand that from an older player. So I sort of think about it like with Pirlo in his later days. Like he didn't run a lot on the pitch, but he just sat back and the plays that he was involved in, it was big quality. So I think Duane's looking at big quality moments and targeting those moments and not going full out Duane Vermeulen from the Stormers days or Cheetahs days kind of thing. When he realized that it is a different Duane, doesn't mean it's a bad Duane. It just means that he is going to do 5 big things a game. He's not going to do 10 average things a game.
Yeah, 100% that. I think he's trying to make sure that he has quality in his contributions to the game and not just a big quantity of 100-meter running meters and 23 tackles and 8 turnovers. He's trying to make sure that he makes the big plays when they count. And I even asked on Twitter maybe his role should be like the front row low role from the 2019 Rugby World Cup Springboks. That if you bring on someone like Duane Vermeulen the last 20 minutes of any sort of game, whether you're behind or whether you're defending a lead, that's a fantastic player to bring on in that sort of situation. So that was a great game from Duane.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
I was just going to say quickly on the 3 Lions loosies. I don't think there's a harder hitting loose chair in the world than Chituka, Venter, and Horn. Those people absolutely just crush people in contact. Emmanuel Chituka, I don't know how many it says 5 defenders beaten here, but the amount of times he got the ball and just ran over a poor backline player, like John Cooney and Billy Birds were just absolutely tired of him running in their channel. We all know about Ron Venter by now. I don't know what this poor kid, what he's gone through in his life, but he just wants to crush any international rugby player in the world. And I'm a big... Yeah, go on, Jared.
Maybe Venter's got that Michael Jordan attitude of he makes something up that like Warwick Alliance at the moment. Everyone's done him wrong.
No, I think so, because I genuinely want to know like what and why and like how he's so brave, just like absolutely like bouncing a wallaby lock that has like 60 or 80 test caps. Like, you don't just do that. You can't just walk into rugby. You're not even 20 years old yet, and you're just doing these sorts of things. Like, someone needs to talk to him, because this is just an absolutely disrespectful like streak that he has here.
He is freakishly big, as well.
Yeah. So, Arjan Slavitt was, on Twitter, he was saying that his father's over 2 meters tall. So he could also possibly grow. I mean, he's not necessarily finished growing yet, and he's already 196. So just imagine if he's still technically going to fill out.
And I mean, he looks like a big boy, but like he's not like massive around his shoulders and arms and that kind of thing. Like could be bigger.
That is just a big person. And then just quickly, I think a player that you've been a fan of for a while is Frankie Horn. I was a bit slow on the uptake, but he has a lot of quality. And I think just the support lines, I think that's the one thing that I've seen from him, that if there's a line break, he's usually the player that's there to take an offload, like he did from Ron Dreyer, which was a brilliant offload, by the way, or he's the one that's able to finish the move. And, I think he easily reminds you of another scrum capped 8th man for the Lions, Warren Whiteley.
Yeah, I think so too. He also captained the Lions against the British and Irish Lions. So yeah, I'm a big fan. I think the harp train, the Frankie Horn harp train, is going to get very crowded very soon.
I was described as the Henke van Wyk hype train. Like, what a quality player he is as well. Let's move quickly to the Sharks versus Glasgow game. And I think this was, I think that for Sharks fans, and obviously Jared being one of them, this was definitely the game where you start salivating at the prospect of, what could happen if you bring all these talents all together. And a big debut from Eben Etzebeth, putting in a man of the match performance. But I think, Jared, you were saying when we were discussing the game before that because it was quite a slow first half in comparison, and the Sharks were behind Glasgow at some stage, I think 12 points to 10 early in the second half. But you don't think they played that badly in the first half, and you're just thinking there's a bit more execution once the Springboks came on in the second half.
Yeah, I think the Sharks were just a bit more lethal and a bit more sharp once the Boks did come on. I think they timed their arrival quite well in the match and in the round that they brought them back. Made sure that they got a good rest in and were fit and firing to go. Bongo and Bonambi looked incredible. So did Ox. And adding Carl Usadi to the mix with them is just ridiculous. Sia was back to his old business, like just monstering Oaks in tackles. Nobody could really bring him down without him getting at least 2 leg drives in. So he was great to see. And I think like a lot of things happening with the Sharks is that it's the timing's just not on, and there's a few little mistakes and they get punished for it. Like I saw it with Apalele Fasi. There's a few times where he's running as a support. He's a support option, but he's too flat on occasion, or like Reniel Hiku when he got the ball from Sia Kolisi after Fasi's chip over the top. Fasi was far too flat, and to try get a second rower to throw a flat pass like that, running at pace, it's not that easy. It's really not that easy. I think Achia Snaven would probably get it right, but not too many second rowers would.
Yeah, I think timing is a big thing, and that is expected because it's a team of new combinations. And I mean, they won't necessarily get time now, but hopefully after the November test, once the whole team can come together and play some games together, there'll be some combinations that start forming now.
No, 100%. And I think with the Sharks, and I think it's a good segue into going to the Munster Bulls game, is that this weekend we sort of saw how important your tight five is to winning matches. We touched on it with the Stormers that their starting tight five wasn't too great, but this got better throughout the game. The Lions tight five was very good, I thought, except when it came to the lineouts, which seems to be the same issue the Stormers are having. But the Sharks tight five, the starting one and the finishing one, were fantastic. And it was a completely different story for the Bulls.
Yeah, I think with the just last thing on the Sharks one is I think obviously the quality is there and it helps a lot that you have, probably one of the best players in the world right now, Eben Etzebeth, in the middle of that tight five. But it's not only him, but obviously Thomas Tutoy has been probably one of the best players in the URC in the last season and a quarter.
Yeah.
He's been just constantly just putting in performances and Box and Chair coming in now into the team. So you have all the raw talent and quality. And if there's one place where the Sharks are fine, it's tight five. And other places, they still need to figure out some combinations and, figure out what they're trying to do. But the tight five is fine there. I think with the Bulls...
And they picked up a nice signing with Francois Fenter joining from the Worcester Warriors. I think it's such a great signing. He offers a lot of what Ben Tapuai does at 12 and a lot of what Lucanio does as a defensive 13. And he's unlikely to get picked up by the Hawks, but when we do need him to fill in for Lucanio and Co, he's going to be fantastic.
You can't really ask for a better signing than that for the Sharks, for like someone to act as the Lucanio replacement. And I think the Tapuai Ron Janssen for Rensburg combination wasn't quite working together in the last few games. So I would prefer either Ron and Fenter or Fenter and Tapuai. I think those two can work a lot better. And he's a sort of center, kind of in a way like a boosted up version of Jeremy Ward. Like he's able to play
fair enough.
Any type of center. So I think
and he's got the leadership as well in that sense.
So I think that is a brilliant signing from Fenter. I mean from the Sharks to get Francois Fenter. Just to turn our attentions to Galway and the performance of the Bulls against Munster. As Jared mentioned, I think the tight five, there's a lot that was missing from the tight five from the Bulls, and I think they just got outmuscled by Munster. I think to simply put it, and it's not that. I think a part of it is a lack of ability because I think our front row ranks for the Bulls aren't the best at the moment, especially with Jan Krobler missing. So there's definitely a lot of like that physicality that Krobler brings that Wessels doesn't quite bring at the moment, and Wessels wasn't really as accurate. I think in his actions than Krobler would be. the Bulls have had their issues at prop, I think, especially since Trevor Nyakane left. Simpio Matanzima was a great young talent, but yeah, just wasn't necessarily at the races. One Ray Smith gave away quite a cheap yellow card. And then, yeah, I think, yeah, it wasn't the best Ronald Kier game. And, I'm a big fan of him.
Which is
So
surprising.
really, yeah. I guess he's due one because he's been absolutely fantastic in the last season a bit. But yeah, he just wasn't really making that impact. He only started getting to the game late in the half. But if you compare it to Munster, I think from Lauman and the Lucid prop and all the way to Idogbo, the 19-year-old block that's made the first start for Munster, they were just committed and getting into every scrap. And it wasn't that it's not necessarily a difference in numbers of tackles made or meters gained or whatever. It was just that when they went into a ruck, when they made a tackle, they made a tackle. And that was just something that was missing from the Bulls in the tight five. But the loose forwards for the Bulls, in saying that, they had a great game in terms of just they making their impacts known and making their hits. People like Marcel Coetzee and Elric Lowe. But yeah, Jared, I think the Bulls are sort of, I mean, it's kind of the same as last season where they did have a few losses on tour. And I don't know if it's just Jake White also trying to experiment things and trying to find what the right combinations are. And we haven't necessarily replaced some of the players that we've lost or are injured, but it's just not working for them. And they didn't really put up much of a fight against Munster.
Yeah, I think we must talk about Munster and how brutal and brilliant they actually were. They selected a bigger pack than they have been able to select through to now, and they really fired. Like having a Jan Hendrik Wessels thrown at the line out and having Tagburn, Peter Omani, Jean Klein, and Dogbu contesting is a perfect storm for the. It's never going to end well. So I think they did well with that. And Roundtree would have known that. He's a experienced forwards coach, having done it with the British and Irish Lions in Georgia and England. So I think they did well to outsmart the Bulls. I think I think it was really poor from the Bulls on defense that you had your back rowers in that first pillar position on your own try line, and Gavin Coombs is going to eat that up. He is definitely going to take that. You need a big fatty driving those guys back, and they were nowhere to be seen. You need Matanzima and you need Smith around those fringes to drive the big boys back. So yeah, I think there's a lot of people spoke about the Bulls backline. I don't think the backline really mattered. It was the kind of game where it was won and lost up front, and Munster won it up front. And I don't think any backline would have been able to change that for the Bulls.
Yeah, I think with the battle up front, I think Munster maybe have something going now. They can play Tugburn at 6 and Peter Manie at 7. It's a much bigger pack, and I think it just goes to sort of those Munster roots of just out muscling everyone. So they did really well there. And yeah, I mean, traditionally you'd expect the Bulls pack to be big and strong and mean, but yeah, I think especially with if they don't have someone like Problon there, and even before that, because of the lack of props, it is a pack that is the tight five, especially that isn't necessarily the biggest quality tight five. So there'll be a lot of growing that the tight five needs to do. And yeah, someone like Rod Kia, who just dropped in the standards a little bit this week, he'll have to lead that charge in future games. A big shout out also, I think, when talking about performances, to Emrys Papier. I think he had probably one of the best games I've seen from a number 9 behind a retreating pack. He was just able to keep things going. And then from the Munster side, Joey Carberry, I think Andy Farrell needs to give a gift to Jake White and the Bulls, because we've just played him straight into some great form just before the November test. And he looked really good driving the game plan. And it seemed like Munster, maybe that's a good thing for the Sharks as well, to tie up that conversation. Munster is starting to get those things going that they were struggling with in the first few weeks with the new coach. So hopefully there's a bit of prospects for the Sharks to get a combination together, and even for the Bulls to an extent. Because yes, I agree with you, Jared, that the backline didn't really matter, but I think there is still some loose jigsaw puzzles that are not really fitting together. So I think cohesion is probably the word for the week for those sorts of teams.
No, exactly that. I think you're spot on there, Thala.
Yeah, I think in essence, just finally, Jared, not the best weekend for the South African teams, but I think when you look at the results and the details of the matches, there's still some things to build on, and not. I don't think we need to put the red alert lights yet for the URC teams.
No, I don't think so. I think it was a poor weekend for the Bulls. I think the other results could have gone either way in terms of the Stormers and Lions, and yeah, a very good, strong performance from the Sharks. So I think there's a lot of positives to take out of it, and we should not be hitting any panic buttons at all. The Bulls are renowned for traveling poorly in this competition, and if they can turn things around on when they come back home, it's a long season, and yeah, nothing to get too upset about just yet.
I think that is the right approach. And then very quickly, Bulls are playing Benetton in Italy on Friday. You have the Lions playing Glasgow at home. Sharks against Ulster, big match there, and then the Stormers are away at Cardiff. So hopefully those matches can we can see a big turnaround. But that unfortunately will be the end of the of our podcast for this for today. Thank you so much for the Dirt Trackers listening. Please follow us on Twitter and on our social media pages, and please visit the bet.co.za website for any of the bets for the weekend. You can definitely bet on the South African teams bouncing back from the weekend's games. And yeah, Jared, thank you so much for joining for the podcast, and thank you to all the Dirt Trackers for listening. Share this podcast, and we will talk to you later this week.